Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and so thrilled to have this gentleman on our Spotlight on the Community Show, Satyan Devadoss. Did I mispronounce the name?
Not perfect.
Okay,
perfect.
Very good. All right, we're going to go with that. And he is a Fletcher Jones professor of applied mathematics at the University of San Diego. How long have you been doing that?
At USD, I've been there for 6 years, my seventh year.
Seventh year.
Yeah.
So when you look at Satyan, he's youthful. He looks like he's 20 years old, for God's sake. But he's been teaching for how many years?
Almost 25.
Which is impossible, as we know. We're also joined by my colleague, and that is the owner and CEO and founder and chief cook and bottle washer for Cloudcast Media. How you doing there, Charles?
I am doing fantastic, and I have to tell you, boy, oh boy, I've been looking forward to this one.
I know, exactly, and that's the inimitable Charles Parisi. So what I loved about Satyan, met him, I was honored to be a MC at a symposium of one of our heroes, Krishna Kabra, who is the CEO of the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum up in Escondido. And of course, Charles and I've known Krishna for a while and just great stuff. And Satyan was one of the keynote speakers there. And man, as soon as he opened his mouth, I said, he's coming on the show. And we even bragged about you in one of these other organizations I work with. I said, we're going to work to get him on as our keynote speaker on an event we have in March. But Charles was in the audience and happened to catch a little bit about it and said, okay, that took about 1 second. We're getting him on as well. But I loved your session. It was in general about the myths of mathematics. You know, you don't have to run for the hills and start taking Valium and just because of get the yips because you hear that. I love how you sort of debunked the myth of mathematics, and you're an applied mathematics guy. Talk about that.
Drew, thanks first of all, and Charles for such kind words about this. But I find that math has two pieces to the puzzle nowadays. One is there's incredible pain associated to it when people think about mathematics, and there's incredible power associated to it. When we think about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, the machine that makes all of it work is mathematics, right? That's the fuel that's pumping everything in. So I'm sitting in a bus, I'm sitting in the airplane, and somebody finds out that I'm a math professor, and they go, oh my gosh, first words, and this is 99% true, is that they say the words, you must be smart. They don't know anything about me. They don't know if I'm 10 years old, 800 years old, if I'm a professor or not. They somehow, oh my gosh, you must be smart. Why is that? Because somehow there's a notion of power on one side, and at the same time, there's a notion of failure for them. Oh, that I didn't do that I didn't make it. And my joy is to try to level the playing field, to let everybody play the game. That's what I love to do.
Yeah, and it was interesting how you broke some of this down on your talk as well, and and I love how you used this. Said, well, you know what? Actually, mathematics is a lot easier than you think. Do you remember that example you used at the symposium?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the mathematics are just made up of the simplest abstractions of ideas. So you could take numbers, you could take triangles, you could take squares, and that's all we play with. And even in the issues of triangles and squares, you get to kind of unknown, unsolved puzzles of math. But compared to the complexity of what it means to be human, what it means to be an artist, a musician, a poet, math plays the easy game.
Right, exactly. Charles?
Yeah, I find all of this such a fascinating conversation, and I know at some point I'd love to maybe have a few questions about this amazing book, but let's talk a word you use, joy. What is your joy in mathematics, and how do we help young people find the joy that you're experiencing with mathematics?
To me, the word that is associated, that is parallel to joy, is the notion of playfulness, the notion of play. If somebody asks me, to play basketball with them. Hey, let's go shoot some hoops, man. Great. The moment they say, by doing that, you're going to build muscle, you're going to have better fortitude, and this is going to help you get a job, all of a sudden, you've ripped that joy out of it. Now I'm thinking, is this a professional thing? Is this something for my heart, for my health, rather than just shooting hoops? Mm-hmm. The moment we think of mathematics, most of the time we think of it as an equipping, powerful tool for our students and our children to get equipped for the future. So many parents are pushing their kids to STEM majors. Hey, you can get a job with that, man. What are you going to do with an art major? And so all of a sudden, the notion of learning mathematics is a tool, not a playful thing. But every mathematician I know could not care less about the utility of math. Engineers care about utility. Scientists care about utility. Those in technology and Elon Musk and Microsoft cares about utility. But mathematicians want to play.
So, follow-up. So take us back to young Satyan.
Yeah.
When did you first find your playfulness with math? Take us all the way back.
That's an interesting question. I remember, to know a little bit more of who I am, I remember growing up in India, I've never seen Legos before. And I saw this kid who had it once in a very rich suburb of this part. And I was blown away. When I came to America, we finally were able to afford some Legos. And I would play with Legos. And this is a very weird thing about me that I realized later on is I'd play for an hour making a toy, like a car. Then I would spend the next hour selling that car to an audience that didn't exist. Dude, 4-wheel drive. This thing's amazing. And I loved to make and I loved to talk about what I made. And that is the punchline at the end of the day. So mathematics was never a driving force. Even in college, I took art history, I took philosophy, I took aesthetics, all of these classes, and I took mathematics. And I realized I liked math over the other things, but just a little bit. And when I went to grad school, the way I grew up was you kind of have to get a PhD in something.
So funny because Christian was talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
The same thing. No, you will be getting these, and they will be straight A's,
yes.
And there'll be nothing but straight A's in that aspect of it. And that's funny you bring that up. We're chatting with Satyan Devadoss. He is the Fletcher Jones Professor of Applied Mathematics at USD, and he is our guest here on Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diegans for more than 60 years. You know what I loved about what you also said during the STEMposium that the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum put on was the fact that, you looked at this, is it STEM versus STEAM versus VAPA versus, Bugs Bunny? Those are my words, not his, in this aspect of it. And you are so spot on. And we are just absolutely science obsessed in this culture. And listen, my STEM friends hate when I say this stuff. I believe in STEM. Are you kidding me? Everything is STEM around you. Mm. It's how it's brought to you and how you're engaging with it and stuff. But you're going to be with visual and performing arts more than you're going to be with STEM your whole life. Most people, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, the things you use are all STEM. We get that. Mm-hmm. But, so talk about how we got to infuse, the humanities, in this culture that is obsessed with scientific, stuff.
I think my framing is return of investment. The fact that STEM has an incredibly short, quick ROI window that you can get back what you put in. Whereas if you're in the humanities and the arts, it is a long play. You're there to change the lives of people 20 to 30 years down the line. Let's just take the notion of dance. I think dance is one of the most amazing disciplines there exists. It's not a painting you can hang on a wall. You see performative action and it is gone. You can watch the video of it all you want, but that's it, right? It's the difference between watching Hamilton live versus watching a DVD of that performance, right? Who wouldn't want to be there live? But the cost of what it means and how it transforms you as a human to have seen that play, to have watched that dance performance, is a long-term investment of impact, whereas STEM gives you a quick return of investment. So America and the world has gone into a shorter fuse, which has valued STEM more. But at the end of the day, when we're sitting at a coffee shop, we know what we love. We love great conversation, great food. We want to talk about that play that we just went to.
Well, the idea of the quicker return on investment for STEM, which is fascinating because we were just having this conversation related to an upcoming CFF event about the conversation about return on investment. But it does seem to foster kind of a mindset of instant gratification when life is better served when you defer.
Yeah.
Instant gratification. That's kind of what you're chatting about. There was a fascinating article recently. It was an editorial in the New York Times, Satyan. I'd love to hear your view that the focus on STEM and the lack of appreciation for a broad liberal arts education actually is the problem in American education. How would you respond to that?
The way things have happened historically, from my understanding, is that the arts and the humanities have kept STEM in check. We as mathematicians and we as scientists would say, hey, what happens if? What happens if we take 300 triangles and do this in 17 dimensions? What happens if we take these chemicals and mix it? What happens if we split the atom? And those in the humanities and the arts have always said, whoa. Let me tell you what history has said. Let me tell you what it means to love. Let me tell you what it means to listen. Take your time on some of those things. The problem is the moment we have pushed the humanities and arts to the side, we've literally taken the feet out of them. The people who are here to keep us in check aren't keeping us in check anymore. So STEM is now unadulterated power. And so we are pushing our kids more into it. What breaks my heart is we are pushing amazing historians, amazing artists, amazing writers, and making them into STEM disciplines, saying that that's the only way to get power.
So I've been saying this for years, and again, when I say that statement, I mean that means 4 billion other people have been saying it, and 10 billion other people have been thinking it. And of course, not that many people in the world. So I mean, I'm way ahead of myself in this aspect of it. Talk a bit about math viewed as utility rather than beauty.
The mathematician's way of thinking about ideas is this notion of playfulness.
Right.
We just throw all of it on the table and just keep playing with these ideas and moving ahead. One of the most remarkable aspects about mathematics is that although you're playing in the cloud, there seems to be a very interesting direct string connected to reality. So as I talk about triangles, as I talk about tetrahedra and higher dimensional things, it turns out that slices of those pieces land in our real world and becomes useful. That there is a joy to that. I don't want to fully push against that trend and to say there's no joy in the notion of connectivity. But the people on the ground, notably those in the sciences, those in technology, and those in engineering, look at that and go, wow, that's pretty powerful ideas you have up there. And it turns out that brings that quick ROI, return on the downside. So people are pushing back and talking about the utility of math, the strings that connect math to the world, rather than just playing in the cloud and having a joyful time.
We come back from break, Charles. I want to, actually, I'm hoping he has a lot of time because we can continue this conversation for quite a while. But want to chat with him a little bit about math in education, whether it's K-12 or pre-K-12. Obviously, you mentioned play, and that's all about the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum as well in that area. And math and technology in our world, and and when it comes to careers, want to chat about that as well when we return with Satyan Devadoss. He is the Fletcher Jones Professor of Applied Mathematics at the University of San Diego. I'm Drew Schlosberg. I'm joined by my colleague, Charles Parisi, the founder and CEO of Cloudcast Media, as you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, doing great things. San Diego for more than 60 years. We'll be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and you were listening to Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diego for more than 60 years. Honored to have in the studio with us Satyan Devadoss. He is the Fletcher Jones Professor of Applied Mathematics through the University of San Diego, author of a book that my colleague Charles Parisi is perusing as we speak right now, and Charles is the founder and CEO of Cloudcast Media. Charles, you want to open up with the second half with some questions?
Yes, I do. In fact, because I know, Satyan, you think in shapes.
Yeah.
And then you communicate shapes.
I do.
So we're going to give you a question right now because I want to just hear how you think and the creativity. Drew is part of the leadership team of an organization that you know called Classroom of the Future. So talk a little bit about the shape of a classroom and its impact on learning. And if Satyan had his magic wand, what in fact would be the shape of a classroom of the future?
It's a great question. Gosh.
Let's play around with it.
I'll be honest with you. The one thing I do know is true is that classroom is going to be embodied. It's going to be a physical place where you can touch. And the reason is really simple. Charles, if you are 5 years old and you look like a 5-year-old kid, great. But as you become a 10-year-old, what happens if you lose a limb? And as you become 15, you lose 2 limbs. And as you become 30, you've lost all your legs. And then eventually, you're purely of the mind. The thing is, this is how we're teaching. We pretend our kids are fully embodied kids when they're in K through 5. And then as they get older, we pretend, oh, you know what? Your bodies don't matter. Just check out this digital image. Just think about this cerebrally. What I feel like is since our limbs and our bodies don't go anywhere, we are fully embodied people. The way we learn is in a fully embodied experience. We put so much time on Montessori education, the great Children's Discovery Museum that we've been talking about how physical it is. It's great for the small kids, but what about the bigger kids? What about the college kids? Why is it that they still have arms, they still have limbs, they still have bodies? Why can't smell be important? Why can't you walk in and all of a sudden you have coconut or lavender and the room is affected? You're learning history and all of a sudden it smells like rose. And you're learning science and all of a sudden it smells like some cool chemical compound. Why can't the thing they're listening to impact the person? Maybe you walk into a math classroom, it's John Coltrane. Yeah. And then you walk into a science classroom and it's something else. It's U2.
And what you're really saying though, of course, or if you layer that a little bit more for our listeners, in none of those environments, ultimately, it's all about mathematics.
Yeah.
You're creating these digital environments and touch and smell.
Yeah.
Everything ultimately comes down to math and ones and zeros, and there's a connection between, it's all connected.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think math is going to be a piece of the puzzle. But if I'm thinking back to my college education, what really mattered to me was the way the girls smelled, the concert I went to, the great meals I've had, how a professor would listen to me about my life and my problems, and very little were actually about the lectures. What it means to be human is the one that allows me to absorb and become a good student. So for the classroom of the future, I would actually push against a digital classroom and more of an embodied classroom where simply, here's the answer, we love each other. In other words, can a teacher actually love their kids, listen to them, break bread with them, hey man, let's go get some pizza tonight. That is gonna have an impact on that student to learn like a sponge more than any amazing audio, digital, video content.
How about in the K-12 realm? Same thing?
Say that again.
So you're talking, that's more in the college area you're talking about. How about in the K-12 realm?
I think that's the same thing. The problem, I'm an idiot at this stage, so I'm going to be mumbling, but one of the issues at the K through 12 is in a college setting, if a student is doing poorly, I can fail them. There are these pressures I can put on those students. In the K through 12, there's incredible government pressure, incredible job security is what it means, and you have parental pressure on the back end. Having grown up in India, if a professor, if a teacher, if a K through 12 teacher walks into the classroom, all the students would get up. We just rise. The moment you get older,
you and I were talking about this.
Yeah, and so here it's if a kid is not doing great, and the teacher actually writes to the parents and say, "Hey, could you help me out here?" And the parents go, "What are you talking about? My Johnny would never do that. In fact, you're messing up." Now we have more power and more pressure against the teacher than we had before.
Yeah, no, that is so true.
Well, I'll tell you, I love what you said about it would be less digital, because that is such a profound, I think, observation and comment in a million ways, cutting through all of society, not just the classroom. About perhaps the less humanizing of, and maybe the good old analog world had actually something to offer.
Yeah, I struggled with, again, I think making a YouTube video or even a TED Talk as an example. If I pour my heart into a TED Talk that's about 20 minutes long and somebody's listening to it at 2 times speed as they're going jogging, they're listening to my life's work in a 10-minute window and they're going, oh, I get that. Let's go to the next one. This is something that would take a long time for us to sit together and have a meal and go, hey, what have you been struggling with? Like, what has worked and not worked? So it's going back to that return of investment. I think you're going to make an impact, but it's going to be a very small one in a digital way. And I think the pandemic has kind of shown us what happens if you just push through the digital lens. Kids are going to be breaking down, emotionally breaking down. It's going to be harder relationships.
You may like this idea, and Drew, I apologize for squeezing one more comment in here. I was involved in a charter school, as Drew knows, and one of the things I was known for is we're not buying any more. We're only buying dumb boards going forward.
Yeah.
They said, what's a dumb board? I said, kind of like, what we used to do before these smart boards came in, kind of when we had better outcomes.
Yeah.
And it might have been more enjoyable with the chalk on the board.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how many young people have said, oh gosh, I always hated the sound of that chalk on the board. But we forget how magical that sound was and where it brings you back to. And so there's something I really think you're onto something important, which is less digital, less technology. It's kind of like more hands-on, more engagement in cool new ways. And it forces you to think more creatively as a teacher if you have less tools and technology, I think.
C.S. Lewis called it chronological snobbery, where we think the thing of the future is better than the thing of the past. And I think there's nothing wrong with technology. Everything is technology in some sense, right? A baseball cap that we wear is somehow technologically created. But to say that it's better than what has existed, that to me is the worrisome part. Let's bring it into the table, but let's let it sit. Let's evaluate what it looks like.
That may be the phrase of the day, Drew, chronological snobbery. I like that.
He's got a whole bunch of them. Are you kidding me? We're going to have just a dictionary of Sethians, and that's exactly what we're going to do over here. Name of your book is?
It's called Mage Merlin's Unsolved Math Mysteries.
And Mage is what?
Mage is a magician. So the goal of the idea that you asked, I think earlier on, Drew, is what would this kind of an education look like in K through 12?
That's right.
This notion of playfulness that we started talking about. And to me, the best way to play, best way mathematicians play is always play with the unknown. The thing about math that most people think of is, there's always an answer in the back of the book, right? Like, what is it? And there's a notion of success and failure. Did I hit 23 or did I not get 23? Oh, I didn't get 23. I'm not good. I got 23, so I got it. But no mathematician thinks that way. For us, there's no back of the book. We are creating new mathematics all the time. What would it feel like for a kid who's in the K through 12 world, actually for somebody who's 80 or 70 or 60 or 50, what would it feel like for them to feel the way I feel? And so the entire book is written as, I'm not sure if you guys remember the show MacGyver. I watched it as a kid. Sure. And so Mage Merlin in the Knights of the Round Table, he is the MacGyver. He's called out by the knights to solve these amazing problems. And he's able to solve most of them, but a few of them he can't figure out. So he keeps a journal of the things he can't do. Build a tent that's this big, make banners that cover Stonehenge that does this. And those problems are all unsolved problems. So instead of presenting it as a mathematical formula and notation, it's written as just the stories. And people read and go, wait a minute, nobody knows in the entire history of humanity knows how to solve these things. This is ridiculous.
It's interesting you brought up MacGyver. You really you've come to the pinnacle when your name is now a verb. I MacGyvered this, okay, right? And so you can go down through history and see how many people's names turned into a verb, right? And so whoever Mr. Google is, I'm going to Google this, exactly, and that aspect of it. Charles, listen, we can have this conversation, and we will. We'll have Satyan back on again to talk about some other things. But let me ask you this. What if you were to wave the magic wand, and this is really not a fair question because I'm putting you on the spot on this, and listen, give some 80,000-foot answer to this, which is just fine. What would you do differently if you could pretty much oversee the course of math curriculum in our K-12 schools?
The introduction of the new Common Core has tried to talk about the big pictures that are painted behind the scenes that mathematicians think about. The weakness is that the teachers and the parents have no clue what those big pictures are most of the time. So the teachers are living day to day. You have issues of the pandemic. You have pressures from administration. You have parental pressures saying, hey, if my kid doesn't do that, how am I going to do this? And the parents go, wait a minute, I learned algebra in 7th grade, and this is all like, what are you doing in 2nd grade? I love the idea of what it tried to do. My dream would be, can we sprinkle and motivate our students by walking to the edge of the unknown? And I say this as an example, as a silly lawnmower example. Imagine you're asking the kids about a lawn, and instead of teaching them how a carburetor of a lawnmower works, the first thing we should tell our kids is, here's what a lawn is. And then we need to ask them to mow the lawn with their fingers. And as they start bleeding after an hour of plucking, we introduce some scissors. And they go, what is that? Oh, this? This is nothing. And then eventually you kind of ride around in a lawnmower and they start crying in tears. Oh my Lord, what is that machine? If you want to learn about that, well, that's this thing. We need to motivate why we're doing these things by talking about the big questions.
It's the being a catalyst for curiosity.
Absolutely.
In students.
Absolutely.
And that's a great idea to get them mowing a lawn by hand.
Yeah. Well, listen, I know it's one of Charles's favorite words, and we don't do internships when we bring college kids in to help either produce my show or other shows that Charles has. We call them curiosity ships, and Charles came up with that word, which is spot on, because it's all about curiosity in this world, and of course, evidenced by what you're chatting about as well. Now, do you have kids?
I do. I have 4.
Okay, and their ages?
25, 22, 19, and then the little one who is 11.
11. So when you look at Satyan, you go, there is no way this youthful guy has a 25-year-old.
Well, I'm going to make it even more astounding. I learned prior to the episode he has his first grandchild.
Boom.
My God, this
It's
guy.
impossible.
Month
it's
old.
impossible.
Oh, well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you, my friend.
What was that movie where you age in reverse, you get younger?
That's what he is. I swear to God.
You are actually not human, are you?
He's not. I swear to God, the guy is some type of a bot.
You guys are nuts.
Yeah.
So, no, let's have a fun one. Let's talk spaces and places. And
I guarantee he's really not here. He thinks he's here. Some Star Trekian existential, Captain Kirk deal. And right now, our listeners are going, "What are you talking about?" And so, first of all, congratulations on that.
Thanks, Drew.
I've got 2, 12 and 10. Right.
Nice.
I look 105 years older than you, but that's okay. It's just a number, right? It's just a number. But I want to thank you so much for coming on, and we will absolutely. How do people get the book, by the way?
I think it's anywhere. MIT made it, and I think Penguin distributes it, so it's all over. Any bookstore.
Okay, and the title again?
Mage Merlin's Unsolved Math Mysteries.
Yeah.
well, what we'll do is, we'll put a link to the book in the show notes. How's that, Drew?
We'll do that. And will you promise you'll come back on?
It'll be a joy.
Can
Thanks
I
so
have one
much.
final question, please? Because this is such a special opportunity.
You may have one final
Just
question.
one more, Drew.
Please.
Okay, so I want to get back to play and spaces and places. And you come all the way out here to San Diego. Fantastic accomplishment by USD. Little shout out to Perla Myers, perhaps.
Thank you.
So how intentional were you about setting up your space at USD?
There are, just to close up this episode with some of the tag points you, Charles, Andrew brought up, there are 3 things I wanted in my contract. 1, a salary. 2, a chalkboard in my office. I believe that whiteboards are demonic. We'll talk about that later.
Oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. This is near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
And 3, a space where mathematics can be touched. And the question is, I think this is my life's calling, is if mathematics has progressed so amazingly in the past 200 years with our mind alone, how much more can it progress if your body is also involved?
That's absolutely spot on. There's a lot of food for talk, for thinking on this. A lot of meat on the bone that he has left us. We are going to follow through, probably much to Satyan's detriment. We'll get you, back on for sure, and chat with you about some other opportunities. And again, really cannot thank you enough for what you did at the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum at their symposium. From coming on our show at literally with no time to prepare for this, no surprise, and by thinking about what we can do to something that's near and dear to your heart. How can we make a difference? And we know that's all in your DNA.
The pleasure's all mine. It's great. Thank you so much.
You bet. We've been chatting with Satyan Devadoss. He is the Fletcher Jones Professor of Applied Mathematics at the University of San Diego. I'm Drew Schlosberg, joined by my colleague Charles Parisi, and another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diego for more than 60 years.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.